Welcome back after the break. You're watching Indus News, and I'm Fiza Jamal bringing you our main stories in detail. We start from Afghanistan, where 4 security personnel have been killed in a car bombing outside a district administration headquarters in eastern Ghazni province. Police say 20 other security officials were wounded in the attack. Officials say a suicide bomber detonated a car filled with explosives near the gate of the government office in Abband district. They say the death toll from the attack may rise. The Taliban have claimed responsibility. The UN Security Council says women's rights must be protected during political deal-making in Afghanistan. This comes after Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani and United States Secretary of State agreed to speed up peace talks. Kabul was rocked by 3 bombings yesterday, in which 11 people were killed. The upsurge comes days before the start of campaigning for scheduled presidential elections in September. For more on this, we are joined by Kabul-based analyst Mr. Hamdallah Hamdard. Thank you for your time. Now, first, the UN Security Council says that women's rights must not be sacrificed during political deal-making in Afghanistan. Do you think the Taliban would allow women representatives in intra-Afghan talks?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I guess it's not only the demand of the UN Security Council, but it is also the demand of the Afghan women and as well as the Afghan educated youths who want the Afghan women to stand on their feet and to become to rely on themselves only and to be more independent as compared to the past and compared to the times when the women or the girls were not allowed to go to school and get education, which are their basic rights in their lives as human beings. So this is not only the voice or the demand of the UN Security Council. It is what all the Afghans want in Afghanistan. And of course, if the Taliban do not accept this right of women, I guess there will be no peace deal with the Taliban and the war will continue.
Right, and U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad is engaged in talks with the Taliban, so we'll see how that also goes around. Thank you, Mr. Hamdallah Hamdard. He was joining us from Kabul, and he's an analyst. Moving on to the United States, where Supreme Court has allowed President Donald Trump to spend Pentagon funds to build a wall on its southern border. The court ruled by 5 votes to 4 to override a decision by a California federal judge to block the funds. The Trump administration can now spend $2.5 billion on wall projects in California, Arizona, and New Mexico. In a tweet, Trump described the ruling as a big victory. Meanwhile, the United States and Guatemala have signed a migration deal on Central American asylum seekers. Under the agreement, migrants from Honduras and El Salvador passing through Guatemala will be required to first stop there and seek asylum. In another development, U.S. President Donald Trump says he is not concerned about North Korea's recent missile tests. He says Thursday's missile launch do not pose any threat to the United States. Trump highlights his strong personal ties with North Korea's chairman, Kim Jong-un.
Well, you said it. They're short-range missiles, and my relationship is very good with Chairman Kim, and we'll see what happens, but they are short-range missiles, and many people have those missiles. Nope, not at all.
And earlier, Chairman Kim said the missile tests were a warning to South Korea to halt joint military exercises with the United States. And we move on. 8 people have been killed and 60 others injured after 2 earthquakes struck the northern Philippines. Buildings were also damaged when 2 tremors measuring 5.4 and 5.9 respectively hit Batanes province. The Philippines National Disaster Agency says the first quake killed 5 people while 3 others died in aftershocks. It says the rescue teams have started operations in the affected area. No tsunami warnings have been issued. The Red Crescent rescue workers have recovered 62 bodies of migrants off the Libyan coast a day after their boat capsized in the Mediterranean. The United Nations International Organization for Migration said 110 people are still missing, feared dead. The Libyan Navy earlier rescued 137 survivors. Most of the passengers were from African and Arab countries. The head of United Nations Refugee Agency, Filippo Grandi, says it is the worst such tragedy in the Mediterranean just this year. Libya is a major conduit for African migrants and refugees seeking a better life in Europe. The death toll from seasonal monsoon storms in South Asia has jumped to over 670. Excessive flooding in Bangladesh has killed 114 people so far. Since the monsoon arrived earlier this month, landslides, flooding and lightning have killed 470 people in India. Another 100 have died in Nepal. In Pakistan, over 35 people have lost their lives in flash floods and a building collapse. Israeli forces have killed a Palestinian man during weekly protests along the Gaza border. The Palestinian Health Ministry says the 23-year-old was hit in the stomach with a live round and died at a hospital in Gaza. It says 40 others were injured when Israeli troops fired live ammunition and rubber bullets at protesters. The demonstrators were calling for Israel to lift its blockade of the territory. Israeli police also detained 7 Palestinians from the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Issawieh. Officials say over 300 Palestinians have been killed since the start of weekly protests last year. In Iraq, 3 people have been killed in 2 bombings in northern Kirkuk and central Saladin provinces. 10 others sustained life-threatening injuries in the deadly attacks. Police officials say 2 civilians were killed and 7 others wounded by a roadside bomb in Kirkuk. In Saladin, a civilian was killed and 3 others were injured after a bomb went off in an amusement park in the city of Baiji. No group has yet claimed responsibility. In South Korea, 2 people have been killed and 17 others injured after a balcony collapsed at a nightclub in southwestern city of Gwangju. Police say the injured include 8 athletes competing at the World Aquatics Championships. Officials say water polo teams were in the club at the time of the incident. Well, now we'll take a very short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back after the break. We'll continue with our main stories. United States has approved $125 million worth of technical and logistics support for Pakistan's F-16 aircraft. This follows Prime Minister Imran Khan's recent visit to Washington for talks with President Donald Trump. The U.S. State Department says it has notified Congress of the sale. Pakistan had requested a continuation of technical support services to assist in the oversight of F-16 operations. And in a phone call, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has informed Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan about his country's support for peace in Afghanistan. Khan also spoke about the ongoing situation in occupied Kashmir. Both leaders vowed to maintain good relations between the 2 countries. Moving on to Ireland, which says Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson's approach to Brexit is very unhelpful. Prime Minister Leo Varadkar said the new British leader is on a collision course with the European Union that would prevent an orderly exit. Irish Prime Minister Varadkar says the question of unification of Ireland and Northern Ireland will arise in future in case of a no-deal Brexit. The criticism from Ireland came just 2 days after Johnson took office with a pledge to strike a new divorce deal with the EU. In another development, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has invited the UK's new Prime Minister Boris Johnson to discuss Brexit. This comes after they spoke on the telephone about Johnson's plans to leave the European Union in October with or without a deal. Despite Johnson's claims that he can obtain better terms, Merkel and other EU leaders are adamant the terms of Britain's exit cannot be renegotiated. Meanwhile, United States President Donald Trump has said talks about a substantial trade deal with the United Kingdom are underway. Following a telephone conversation with Boris Johnson, Trump said the new Prime Minister will do greatly in the office. Trump said a bilateral deal with post-Brexit Britain could lead to a tremendous increase in trade. He said US-UK trade had previously been impeded by Britain's membership of the European Union. Johnson and Trump agreed to start talks as soon as possible after the UK leaves the European Union.
We're working already on a trade agreement, and I think it'll be a very substantial trade agreement. You know, we can do, with the UK, we can do 3 to 4 times. We were actually impeded by their relationship with the European Union. We were very much impeded on trade.
Trump and Johnson have also discussed tensions with Iran and the need for the two countries to work together on the issue. And moving on, US President Donald Trump has asked the World Trade Organization to stop designating China and other thriving economies as developing nations. The move comes ahead of a renewed trade talk between the US and China in Shanghai next week. Under the World Trade Organization rules, developing countries qualify for preferential treatment in trade agreements. Highlighting China, Trump said dozens of countries abuse their developing status. He also named Turkey, Mexico, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. Trump said that the World Trade Organization must change the provisions that define developing economies. The U.S. Justice Department has approved a $26 billion merger between wireless network operators T-Mobile and Sprint. The companies have agreed to create a new wireless carrier after selling assets to the satellite TV provider Dish Network. It will also be able to access T-Mobile's network for 7 years. Following the announcement, T-Mobile stocks hit an all-time high of more than $85. Sprint shares also gained $8. Dish Network stocks climbed by as much as 3.5%, but a group of U.S. state attorneys have filed a lawsuit with a federal court to block the merger. They argue the join-up would cost consumers more than $4.5 billion a year. Chinese telecom giant Huawei has launched its first 5G mobile phone for commercial use. The phone will hit the market on August the 16th. The company says it has started taking domestic orders for the Mate 20X smartphone, priced at nearly $900. China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology issued 5G licenses to 4 major telecom operators in June. China is set to become the world's largest 5G market, with 416 million users expected by 2025. And in Democratic Republic of Congo, the World Health Organization said the United States can boost the battle against Ebola virus by allowing more of its experts to visit the outbreak zone. Ebola virus has killed over 1,700 people in Congo since the world's second worst outbreak was declared almost a year ago. World Health Organization says it has over 600 staff in the field. A World Health Organization official said it can redouble its efforts for containing the disease with the deployment of more people. Poor security in the affected areas has hampered efforts to control the outbreak of Ebola. More from the World Health Organization, it has declared electronic cigarettes and heated tobacco products unhelpful in the fight against cancer. A report has urged smokers and governments not to trust claims from cigarette firms about their latest products. The report accuses the tobacco industry of being aggressive and well-resourced opposition to tobacco control measures. The WHO program manager Vinayak Prasad said misleading branding of tobacco products is aimed at growing their market share. The World Health Organization says e-cigarettes are contrary to claims made by their manufacturers and are just like other tobacco products. And now we move on to India. Its textile hub, Surat, is in crisis after the closure of some 50 factories in a year. The imposition of a goods and services tax has increased the cost of textiles, cooling consumer demand. More in this report.
India's textile industry is writing under the cost of a goods and services tax. The nationwide 5% levy was imposed on the previously tax-exempt textile industry 2 years ago. Since then, 50 of the nearly 350 textile mills that once thrived in Surat have shut down. Even those still working are operating at well under capacity.
The 60 process houses which have closed down are only just recent ones. After implementation of GST, nearly 90 to 100 process houses have been shut down. Even the ones still operating are only working on their 60% capacity at the best. The market is absolutely silent. This is a festive season and still they are putting out only 3 batches a week.
Industry experts say even India's forthcoming celebration of the Festival of Lights will only grant a temporary relief.
If the industry picks up pace till Diwali festival, then this phase of mills shutting down will stop. However, if it doesn't, then our cost is increasing every day. And if we can't sell and get the right amount for it, then the industry will face problems again.
The sales tax imposed in 2017 has made it complicated for door-to-door salesmen to work. That has effectively killed off a key marketing avenue for Surat's textile industry.
A 1965 Aston Martin DB5 outfitted with special gadgets for James Bond will go up for auction in August. The modifications include tire slashers, machine guns, and a bulletproof shield. This report has more.
RM Sotheby's expect the vehicle to fetch between $4 million and $6 million. The car was never seen in Bond films, but matches the one 007 drove in the movies Goldfinger and Thunderball. 007 was James Bond code number. The Aston Martin has undergone 13 modifications, including a Browning .30 caliber machine gun in each fender and a bulletproof rear windscreen.
The car behind me was used in both Goldfinger and Thunderball, the iconic Sean Connery portrayal of James Bond. We've got 13 functional gadgets on this car, ranging from 30 caliber machine guns to nail dispensers to ejector seats. Let's take a look.
Sotheby's say the modifications have been properly refurbished to function as originally built. The car has had 3 private owners in over 50 years.
This is one of the most significant cars produced of all time, appropriately titled in the famous book, The Most Famous Car in the World. This is really the first example of product placement in all of, film and public advertising that I can really think of. And the James Bond franchise is the most iconic. It's known with the DB5. It is the most significant car in the world. The estimate for sale next month in Pebble Beach is $4 to $6 million.
The auction will take place on August 15th in Monterey, California.
In Romania, an interpreter brings a music festival to life for the hearing-impaired community. Using her hands, Amber Galloway Galejo translated the music into sign language. It is the first time a major festival has been made accessible to the country's hearing-impaired community. More in this report.
The Electric Castle Festival in Romania takes place every year, but it became more inclusive this year. To make the hearing impaired feel the beat, Gallego took to the stage and interpreted the music for the differently abled community. The move was appreciated by the hearing impaired.
I really like to go to festivals. I have been going to festivals for the last few years. The atmosphere is beautiful. I feel integrated and I feel very good communicating with people. I like to communicate by sign language, but I also talk to them and greet them.
According to Romania's Labour and Social Justice Ministry, over 23,000 people with hearing disabilities live in Romania, and many of them struggle in their day-to-day life. However, this doesn't stop them from living their dreams to the fullest.
I very much like to dance. I go to dance classes when I have time. Sometimes I go, some other times I take a break. I like to dance salsa and bachata. It is hard because I have to follow the steps, I have to follow the rhythm, but I trust my dance partners, and then I know when I'm being led, I can do it.
People with hearing disabilities say more events should be organised to integrate them into the community.
Let's take you to the world of business, where President Donald Trump says the United States will hit France with reciprocal taxes after Paris announced 3% levy on digital services. Trump says it should be the United States which can tax its companies. White House says France's unilateral tax appears to target innovative U.S. technology firms. It says Washington will not tolerate discrimination against U.S.-based firms. Well, it is very, very hot today in Lahore, but let's see what the weather is looking like today around the globe. These are all of our main stories we have in detail for you. I'll be coming back in 30 minutes with the headlines of the hour.